And I'd like to welcome everybody for joining us today. And again, we'll introduce ourselves. Several of you have already seen several of us throughout the week, but we'll introduce ourselves one more time. My name is Jessica Benson, and I am the school counselor, and I primarily work with the freshmen and sophomores as they prepare for the college application process. Mr. Rooney?
Go ahead, Aisha, please.
I'm Aisha King. I'm the Director of College Counseling, and I work primarily with the 11th and 12th graders in academic advising and the college application process.
Senora?
Yes, I'm Senora Seligman, Carmen Seligman, and I'm with the Foreign Language Department, and I'm one of the Spanish teachers. I do mainly the IB classes and the heritage speaking.
Dr. Freitas?
Yes, I'm Dr. Freitas, and I'm the department chair for foreign language. I teach Spanish 1 through Spanish 3. I sort of oversee the department. No IB classes this year, but I have in the past taught all levels.
And in the past few nights, you've probably seen my face a few times. I'm Brian Roney, one of the IB coordinators and assistant head of school for academics. So nice to see everybody again. Thanks for everybody for being here.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for being here this evening to help our students understand what the language B, Spanish and Latin classes are all about. So I'll let you take over from here on however you want to present your information.
Would you like to start, Nan, first with the department overview, and then I can jump in?
Well, as I said, I oversee the department as department chair, and we do offer 2 sections, Latin IB classes and Spanish. I could talk a little bit for Latin since our instructor is not here. We do offer an SL course for Latin in the junior year, so they would have 2 years, junior and senior year of SL Latin. We also offer ab initio Spanish. Senora Seligman can talk a little bit. She has the 2nd year cohort this year. Ms. Kirsten Dalto teaches our 1st year. So basically, as far as the Spanish levels, I think Carmen Seligman will inform you about prerequisites and some of the overview on those.
Yes, for the Spanish, the IB, like Dr. Freitas said, is divided in 2 groups. We have the higher levels and we have also the standard levels. They normally come to me, well, as juniors. They come to me as juniors, and sometimes our classes are combined, SL with HL, and sometimes they're separate. It's a 2-year program. It's a cohort. So once they enroll in that program, they pretty much have to stay in the program. And one of the goals of the program, obviously, is to get them ready and get them prepared for the IB exam that happens in May. It's a fast-paced course. And normally our students, when they come to us for SL and HL, they come with experience. They've had Spanish before, either at our school or in another school, with the exception of the ab initio. The ab initio Spanish is also a 2-year program, and this is geared for students that have never had any Spanish, never been exposed to the language. And the majority of the students that we have in that class are international students, that they come from China or any other country. These are normally the students that are in that class. And they also test in May. I also teach a heritage Spanish class. This is very new for us. It's the first time that we teach this class. And these are for freshmen. Is for freshmen who have been, who are knowledgeable, at least with speaking Spanish. They're heritage speakers. They probably speak Spanish at home with their parents. They might not be fluent in writing, but they are very connected to the language because of their families, and the way they grew up, because they speak it at home. So they are with me for 2 years on the heritage speaking class. And then when they become juniors, they can move into the IB higher level. So this is just my overview.
Dr. Freitas, can you talk about the content of the IB Latin course, what it entails? If you know what the IAs or internal assessments are, as well as what the papers look like for the students. This is kind of the information that we've been giving to students as we've been giving these presentations. And then, Senora, can you go through the ones for Spanish?
Okay, so for Latin, it again, like the Spanish, a 2-year program. It's only at the standard level. So as juniors, that's when they would be entering. They would have to have the prerequisite having taken Latin 1 and 2, and our instructor teaches all of the courses, both regular track and the IB. Prerequisites, generally, we'd like to see that they're achieving at a high B level in their Latin 2 courses. And Latin, as most people know, is a classical language. So unlike Spanish, where we have to test for oral proficiency, Latin is primarily written, and they do a lot of translations. So typically, like their regular Latin 1s and 2s, they're learning vocab, they're learning grammar, but it's used primarily to translate the classical readings and also being able to write. So when they get into the SL segments, most of the IAs are strictly writing and translations.
Okay. For the IB program, the SL and the HL program are very much aligned. There isn't much difference between the SL and the HL. The only difference is in the internal assessment, which is the oral. The SL normally does their orals based on a visual, on a picture, and the HLs is based on some sort of a literature story that we read throughout the 2 years. We focus a lot on the culture. We do a thorough cover of the grammar in the 2 years. IB is based on 5 themes and several sub themes. So we have 2 years to expand and develop the 2 themes, the 5 things that we need to cover. There's a lot of writing. There's a lot of writing involved. There's a lot of speaking and listening, and there's a lot of reading involved. So it's a pretty high level course for students who want to be challenged. Normally the students that come into the class, they've shown a desire for the language and they're willing to do the work. And so we do have 2 years to work with them.
Well, what are the internal assessments for the Latin and Spanish students? Are they papers or
the internal assessment is an oral.
an oral? Okay.
It's an oral exam, that is based on a picture that relates to the theme. That's the oral. And normally the oral takes about 7 to 10 minutes because there's a monologue that they need to conduct. And then there's a conversation that they have with me. And for the HLs, it's also an oral, but we provide them with an extract from one of the stories that we read, and they have to analyze it, and then they need to connect it to one of the themes. So they speak for between 3 to 5 minutes on their own. Then we have a conversation until we reach 10, 11 minutes. This year, with the new changes, languages do not have the papers that they do. They used to do their external assessments. Correct? Am I right with that? Correct. The paper that they normally write for each subject at the end, we don't have that anymore. So languages do not have that additional assignment. Their other subjects have.
Okay. What about for the Spanish ab initio? Do you know what their internal assessment is? Is it also an oral?
Yes, the internal assessment is just the same as the internal assessment of SL. Actually, SL is identical to ab initio. They're very much aligned. Oh, except that they speak for less minute and the value of the points is less. And also they, on the day of the exam, their exam is 1 hour and 15 minutes versus an hour and a half for paper one.
Mhm. Okay, thank you very much.
How do you, I'm sorry, can I ask a question? How do you prepare your students for the IB exam?
How do I, well, when I don't
Is it
know.
repetition, or is it reviewing the skills, or is it?
I for the SL and HL,
Yeah.
when they come to me, they've already had, a good grasp of grammar. They've been introduced
Right.
to the grammar that they need. So for me, grammar is a supplement. It's not the focus. It's not the focus of the writing. It's not like we do a lot of like they would do in lower levels. The way that we do is they write for me, and then as when they do their first paper, for example, I identify by when they write the first essay, like in after the 4th week of school, I identify the areas of grammar that I feel that I need to work with them, instead of starting with regular verbs, present tense, and preterite and all that. That is not necessary. I target what they need because, and that's the focus that I have. And yes, there's a lot of repetition. We do a lot of essays. They do a lot of writing. And in IB, different from AP, the students have to learn 15 different types of formatting and formatting types. So in a regular AP class, they just have to write an essay, correct? Well, in IB, there are 15 types of writing. They need to know how to do a newspaper article, a blog, a brochure, an interview, an essay, a speech. So, and they need to know the formatting for all these. And also, when we provide them a prompt, when we provide them a prompt, so they have to choose what formatting that prompt will be more appropriate to. Would this prompt be better if I did a blog, or if I did a formal letter rather than a brochure? So they need to be so we practice all these formattings for the 2 years, so by the time they're ready for the exam, they've had quite a bit.
Yeah.
For the oral, I conduct 2 practice orals individually per student. And every oral takes 30 to 40 minutes in time. And I practice with them one-on-one. We just did our Zooming. I just did my ab initio 2 and my SLs. We just had, hours I had with them are Zooming and making like a real exam, because they're seniors, like the real exam. And I give them a written report, and I meet with them individually to go over the areas that they need to work. And in about 2 weeks, I'm doing again now my seniors. This is for the oral. I also meet twice a year with them to go over their essays. Whatever prompt, whether it's an email, whatever it is, I meet with them individually to go over their papers. So I don't know if I asked, but there is repetition, obviously, like in languages.
Thank you very much. I know, Doctora, you said for the IB Latin SL, students in Latin 2 should maintain a high B to be considered for the IB Latin course. Senora, how would students determine which level of Spanish they should take between the SL and the HL?
Okay, well, when I used to teach Spanish 2, I had an idea because I knew them. I taught Spanish 2, so I knew each student's ability, but now Dr. Freitas teach Spanish 2, so she meets with me and we go over the students, and that's how they're determined. Sometimes Doctora Freitas will ask me to interview, to meet with the kids individually, and I'll have a meeting with them, and sometimes they don't know whether that would be the right, whether HL or SL. And sometimes, they'll come to me and I'll explain to them what is one and the other, But as you know, a lot of it has to do whether they're in the diploma program. It really, in this situation, whether they're certificate or diploma, that is a big factor, and where they go, as you know that. So.
Great. Thank you, Senora, for that. I do not see any questions pop up in the chat or the Q&A yet. Any other questions from Mr. Oni?
Well, I would just like to outright brag about your IB scores and how awesome they are in your department.
Thank you.
I can't rave about them enough, but you guys have some amazing success, and you've proven success in the last 5 years. And so I would just commend you on that, and you guys do an amazing job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of my students.
Yeah.
I tell my students that I'm only 25% of their success.
Yeah.
They are the 75%, because when they're taking the exam, I'm not there with them,
Right.
but they sometimes they'll say to me, yes, you are there.
Yeah.
You are there because the advice that you give us, the hints, the tricks, and not to be nervous, everything that you've done, we bring it with us. So that's quite nice to hear that from them. So thank you. Kudos to the students. The students,
Oh, yeah.
Great kids, great students, great kids.
Okay, since I do not see any questions, we're going to take a break from the webinar as we wait for our Fine Arts Department to join us at 6:45. So for those of you who are participating in the webinar, we are taking a break, and we will be back at 6:45 to talk with the Fine Arts Department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. And some of us have already introduced ourselves, so I'll let our new panelists introduce themselves, and we'll start with Dr. Hoffman.
Hi, my name is Dr. Sloan Hoffman. Students call me Doc Hoff, and I teach all of the performing arts at Villanova, and I'm the IB music teacher.
Ms. Grant?
Hi, I am Casey Grant. I am the IB visual arts teacher. And in addition to that, I teach ceramics and art, morse, and culture at Villanova.
Great, thank you very much. So I don't know how you guys formatted your presentations tonight, so go ahead and start where you'd like, and we'll see if there's questions as they come in.
I think Ms. Grant's was going to go first with her IB art program, and then I'll follow up with the music.
Yes, sounds good. So what is IB art? IB art is a 2-year intensive visual arts course that explores all aspects of being an artist. Students are held up to high level standards, college level, in content, expectations, and evaluation. From writing about art, researching art, discussing art, creating art, and presenting art, IB art students will learn every aspect of actually being a working artist. As far as workload goes, students will need to dedicate time outside of class to work on their IB tasks and projects, in addition to inside the class. About every 1 to 2 weeks, there is a homework sketchbook assignment. And for IB in particular, there are 3 IB art tasks that they will be working up towards. The first one is the CS, which is a comprehensive researched visual comparison of different artists' work, and your own if you test HL. So you can choose to take the IB art tests. The class is HL, is higher level, but you can choose to test at SL standard level or HL higher level. So that is up to you when you get to the testing point. What level you take will affect how many materials you turn in to the IB for each task. For art, it's not vastly different from SL to HL. One of the other tasks that you will do as a part of IB Art is the process portfolio. And what is that? It's a visual portfolio of your art journey and your art inspirations. I'm actually currently an IB examiner for this task, so I know a lot about it. And I can tell you, I can tell the students exactly what examiners are looking for because I am one. The students' favorite task is always the exhibition. That is the big culmination of all the work that they've done over 2 years, and they get to share it with the whole school and the community. So what it is they create their own themed collection of work in any media that they like, and we share that with the school. In a typical year, we would have a formal art exhibition in the art center. Last year we had it in or online, and I think it turned out pretty great for everything considering. It looked great, and it's nice to know what to do now when to have it online. So no matter what the case, we will find a way and a venue for you for your exhibition, and make sure that you get to share your artwork with the school and the community. What makes a good candidate for IB Art? It is recommended that you take art and Western culture first, because you need to have a general understanding and that foundation of art before you get into the higher level art. If you haven't taken art and Western culture before, you can show me a portfolio to show me that you have that foundation of the art basics like drawing and painting. Let's see, you are expected to be self-motivated and highly productive. And I think that goes for any IB class. That's just an expectation across the board. And it's expected that students will do a lot of their own research and studio work, again, inside and outside of class. Art is a discipline that requires persistence, energy, planning, skill development, and hard work. It's also a lot of fun, though. We have a lot of fun. So it's hard work, but you will have a lot of fun, and the exhibition's always really fun. Everyone gets to come see your work. You can contact me if you have any more questions past tonight at cgrant@villanovaprep.org. I also have an information handout I can share with you if you are interested in IB Visual Arts. And that is all I have to say. If there's any questions at this point, you're welcome to ask me. Let me check if we have questions in the chat. Yes.
No
Yes,
questions.
so go ahead and you can ask a question, I believe, in the chat.
You can ask a question in the chat, also in the Q&A. I don't
Ms.
see it.
Grant, maybe I missed this, but did you talk about, are there prerequisites for the class?
Yes.
Oh. You did talk about that. Okay, sorry. I may have missed
Ms.
that.
Grant, can you talk about the level of artist students have to be? Do they have to be this wow artist, or can they be a beginner artist? What do you recommend?
That's a great question. You need to have that foundation of artwork and an understanding of art, but you don't need to be like the best artist ever. You can be a beginning level artist and still be a great candidate for IB Art.
Thank you. Dr. Hoffman?
I teach IB music, which has been a 1-year class, and now it's becoming a 2-year class. And so what used to be music theory is now year 1. And I love the IB music course and curriculum because it allows anyone who's interested in music, regardless of whether you've ever played an instrument or sung a note, to come into the class and do very well in the class and earn an IB certificate. The reason for that is we have 2 options for students in IB. One is to do solo performing. So for those students who do play an instrument or sing and they feel confident in doing a 15-minute solo recital, that would be what they do for 50% of their IB certificate. I every year have had students who don't play an instrument or they do, but they just don't feel comfortable in front of a class or in front of an audience. And so the option for them is to learn how to do Logic Pro. Logic Pro is what a lot of professional recording artists and producers use to create electronic music and backing tracks for video games and movies and for popular music. And it doesn't matter if you don't have any experience with that either, because I teach that from the ground up. And by second semester, students have a portfolio of songs that they can submit to IB. So that's kind of the fun performance or creative part of IB. The other part of IB music is there's 3 different components. One is learning about non-Western music. So we learn about dozens of genres of music from all over the world and within the United States and the Americas. And in addition to that, there's also a Western art music component. That's a fancy way of saying classical music. It's like Bach and Beethoven and Gregorian chant and symphonies and operas and that sort of music. And then the third component, and this is probably the most challenging, but the students say it's the most rewarding, is learning about music theory. And music theory is how music functions. So you've probably heard people talk about the key of a music, or it being in major or minor, or what a note is, or a scale or a pitch. You learn all of that and you get to be pretty proficient. I'd say in our music theory studies, we get to be about the same level as maybe a first semester college music major. So you get really proficient at being able to do 2 things. One of them is to listen to music and be able to articulate what you're hearing. So instead of just saying, that sounds cool, or that sounds loud, or I like that, you're really able to use a new vocabulary to say, oh, that is in major and it has a homophonic texture, and I can hear that the trumpets are articulating with staccato. And if you don't know what I'm saying, that's fine. It's kind of like I am speaking a whole different language, but you learn all of that in the year 1 of IB. The second part of music theory is you're able to look at music on a page and explain what it is it might sound like. And the reason that they have you study the music theory for IB is because it gives you a much better ability to understand music from all cultures and all genres. And that's the main goal of the IB music. It's called a listening paper, but what it really is a test. It's an exam. And where you listen to music of a variety of genres, and you take that theory that you know and you apply it to what you're hearing. And you might look at music on a page that you've never seen before, and you talk about that music. We also learn about 2 pieces that are called prescribed works that you're required to learn, and you have to answer a question about that. And we spend almost an entire semester learning about those musics so that you know them inside and out. I've heard that students get a little scared because they hear about this exam. And the great thing is from your very first quiz in year 1, it's in the format of that listening paper, that exam. So by the time you get to May of that second year, when you're actually sitting down for that 2-hour exam, you've probably done 75 to 100 of these. I mean, it's in your head. And my students have ended up doing really well. They have a lot of self-confidence when they come out of the class. And I think it's really cool. I hear from alumni who send me emails and say, oh, I was watching a movie and there was this song and it made me think of this one song that we listened to, or I heard didgeridoo music and it made me realize I can talk about didgeridoo music. And there's a huge sense of accomplishment that comes from students, and they say they'll never hear music the same way ever again after taking the IB music course. And it's really fun, and I encourage students who, if you just enjoy music, to take the class. And yes, it's difficult, but all IB courses are difficult. So I can't say that it's, students always want me to gauge, is it harder than art or is it harder than psychology? It's just requires you to put in some time and effort. But another great thing about the IB classes is they're always small. There's usually 5 students or fewer. So we get to know each other really well, and I can spend a lot of one-on-one time with each student. And you come out being a stronger thinker and a stronger musician and a stronger creator of music by the end of the 2 years. So, questions about music?
Dr. Hoffman, what is the internal assessment for IB music?
Oh, I didn't talk about that. They call it a media script, which is just IB's cheeky name for paper. You're right. It's a 2,000 word paper, and that sounds kind of daunting at first. But we start that in the end of the second semester of year 1, and it's finished by the end of first semester of year 2. And you get to choose the 2 genres of music that you want to study, and you try to put them, you're comparing and contrast 2 very different genres of music. For instance, I have someone doing Polish polka and didgeridoo, Aboriginal Australian music, and they really get to investigate those. And part of writing this paper is I try to show students the best practices for doing research and citing sources and writing a paper as you would in college, since that's going to be a huge foundation of most college degrees, is writing papers. So we do them in small chunks, and students usually say that they were afraid to do the paper and start that project initially, but the way we do it is so kind of user friendly that they really realize it's not that bad after all. So that's 25%. The other 25% of the IB certificate is IB music certificate is the exam, and then the 50% is the fun part. It's the creating and the solo performance.
Great, thank you.
Did a question pop up? I can't see.
Yes, and the question was, since IB Music is 2 years, is it an HL course? No, all of our courses, whether they're HL or SL, are 2-year courses. IB Music is a SL course, and then IB Art is taught at the higher level, but you can choose to test at the standard level. And that could be a conversation that you have with Ms. Grant as you're deciding. If you are a full IB diploma candidate, you will choose which level you want to test at. So we make sure that you have the 3 higher level courses and the 3 standard level courses needed for the full IB diploma program. Are there any other questions? Please ask. We'll wait a few minutes as you think about what questions you have.
Doc Hoff, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about some of the field trip opportunities you've had with your music classes in the past?
Sure. Right. In a normal year, I usually take my IB students to performances and workshops that align with what we're studying. In the past, we've gone up to UCSB and seen performances. And one great resource for my IB students is the Grammy Museum in downtown LA. And especially in the years that I have students who are considering going into music as a career, we've gone down there for workshops. Last year, I took our 3 students down and we did a panel workshop with people in the music industry who work for Sony. There was a producer, someone who does rights for movies, someone who is in legal, someone who does R&A, which is going out and finding new acts to try and sign to their label. And it was a great experience for my students to be able to interact directly with people who actually are in the music industry and to be able to work with them. We also bring people onto campus to do workshops, and I usually open those up to IB music students first, and then the rest of the student population after that. We have some alumni who have done very well in the music industry, and they're always happy to come and work with students. So.
Ms. Grant, do you have any similar things that you do with the art students outside the classroom?
Yes, there's always an opportunity to, usually we do at least one art museum trip that kind of combines the students of IB Art and my art club students. So again, in a typical year, we typically go to at least one art museum a year. We've been to the Broad in downtown LA. We've been to the Santa Barbara Art Museum. We've been to the Getty. So we've been a couple different places, and always open to going to new galleries and exposing them to artwork, again, in the real world by real artists out there who are having it as a career. So yes, there's definitely field trip opportunities in art as well.
Great, thank you.
I have another question. This question actually pertains to both of you, but because the IB is so rigorous, I find value in making sure that there is art and creativity built within the curriculum for those who want to pursue it. But I also recognize that sometimes it can be daunting to think, why would I take music or art if I want to pursue a pre-med path in college, or want to do something entirely different? And I see value in it, but I would love to hear about transferable skills that you have, that you will gain in doing music or art.
Sure. Music is one of those subjects that, and you'll find this out if you take IB music, it's actually part of every other subject. I could do a cross-curricular units with every single subject out there. In fact, we do a little bit of physics, we do some biology, we do some mathematics, because basically all music theory is really pretty sounding math. It's tons of math. That's what it is. But I mean, one thing is to always do something that's your passion, even if you do want to go into engineering, or you want to be an accountant or go into finance. If you enjoy art or music, then have that be part of your life in some way. I know universities and colleges like to see a well-rounded student and want to see that you are following your interests. It's funny you mentioned pre-ed. This is just a random factoid, but the undergrad major with the highest percentage of students to get into med school is actually music. 60% of students who graduated with a music degree who apply to med school get in. And the reasons for that is that med schools know that if you are engaged with music, you can work well with others, because there's a lot of playing in ensembles and working together. They know that you can sit by yourself for long periods of time and work on something and work on it and work on it and work on it until it's, quote, perfect. There's something about the way students have to think about music theory and process it that is much the same as the maths and sciences. So it's exercising that part of the brain. And I could go on and on because I'm a total nerd about this sort of thing, but there's lots of reasons to do music beyond just going out there and trying to be the next pop star or American Idol. Miss Grant?
So similar to what Dr. Hoffman said, art is everywhere. There's so many different disciplines, so many different fields that you can take art into. You can go into graphic design, you can go into game design, you can go into fashion. And even if you don't go into a specific creative field, you can still use that creative way of thinking to have a leg up over someone else who just thinks in one particular way. Like if you're in business, you can create a creative, beautiful looking presentation, or think of, you're in marketing, you can think of a way to market something in a creative way that someone else can't think of because they can't tap into their creative side. So it definitely has, its uses beyond just, I'm going to make something that looks pretty and hang it up on a wall. Like art is so much more than that. Art is car design. It's, as I said, fashion, so many different things. Art is around you, all around you. So
Thank you,
very
Ms.
transferable. Yes.
There's a question in the chat about teaching music online currently and the effects of doing that. If you can kind of talk about that.
It's gone pretty well thus far. I think I'm technically only have had, let me see, I've been in year 2, so I haven't had to teach the first year, which would have been mostly music theory. There's 2 facets to this. The part of when we're listening to music and talking about it, I use an app called Watch Together, which allows all of us to hear the music clearly and as it was designed, and rather than through Zoom where the quality is so poor. And but we can still be on Zoom and discussing what we're hearing, and I can pause and talk to the students. The other facet of that, and I think maybe this question is more geared to people who are actually playing an instrument or singing. And if I have this wrong, please correct me in the chat. But I do one-on-one sessions with my students who are doing solo performing. It's kind of like doing mini private lessons where I can hear them play or sing, and I can give them pointers and critique them to the best of my ability for that instrument. Some students have elected to take private lessons with outside of the school in preparation. That's not necessary, but some students do. We use a lot of resources. I have students send me videos of themselves performing so that I can hear them. The classes are so small that I really am able to invest one-on-one time with students, at least a half hour to an hour a week with each student who's working on their instrument. And as for learning Logic Pro, I haven't encountered an issue yet, just because I didn't teach it this year because my one student who does electronic music is extremely advanced and uses Ableton at home. And so I didn't have to teach it because the other students were electing to do solos. Last year, the students, by the time we went into online learning, were already advanced into their projects. And because Apple was allowing students to use Logic Pro free for 3 months, they were able to have the DAW at home, and I was able to give them some of our on-campus resources to use the DAW or the Logic Pro so they could complete their projects well. So I haven't run into any issues at this point. I hope that answered the question. If it didn't, please chime in again, and I'm happy to elaborate.
Thank you very much. And please, if you have questions, you can ask. We'll be here waiting for a few minutes to see if any other questions come up. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any other questions that are coming up for the Fine Arts Department. Any last minute thoughts that any of you have before we end the webinar?
Follow your passion. Worked for me.
We'll have our final night of, there's a question, hold on.
This question comes up every year.
The answer is no. That's not a possibility. Unfortunately, there's not room in both junior and senior years to take the 2-year course. So that's where the
There's one possible caveat to that is the year 1 of IB music can be taken independently as music theory. I don't know if it ends up working in the schedule against when IB art is scheduled. So a student in theory, sophomore or junior year could take music theory, not as IB music, and then take IB art junior senior year. I believe
Could
that's
they
how.
do that in their senior year though, when they have more room for electives potentially?
Yeah, I used to have mostly sophomores take music theory, and then some seniors. But I mean, I don't know if it would ultimately work out with the schedule, but there's a possibility that it could.
So thinking about caveats, potentially, and I don't necessarily recommend this because this would be a year off of music, but they could do music theory in the sophomore year and then take IB music the second year in senior year when there's more room for electives if they want to do IB art for junior and senior years. But that, I don't recommend that at all, but that is a possibility.
I wouldn't either. It should be contiguous because all that knowledge goes.
Mhm.
Yeah, if there's a 1-year gap there, that might be kind of tough.
Yep.
Yeah.
I also have to add that I'm biased because I was a music student in college, and Talkoff and I tend to go looking for them for this class. So
Okay. Tomorrow night is our final night for the IB Information Week, and it will be at 6 o'clock to 7:30 with the math and science departments. So hope to see you tomorrow, and thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
trying to think if I had any questions for you.
Before you leave.
Nice job, guys. Thank you so much. Really, it's gone really well this week so far.
Oh, let me